almost everything that actually gets used in the first 72 hours of an emergency is already somewhere in your house right now. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's exactly one of it. One roll, one bottle, one packet, bought for an ordinary reason on an ordinary day, sitting in a drawer you'd have to think about to find. And the entire distance between coping well and coping badly is usually just the difference between owning one of something and owning four. Nobody runs to a survival store when things go wrong. They go to the same grocery store as everyone else, at the same time as everyone else, for the same 20 products. You watched it happen with cleaning supplies and paper goods 6 years ago, and you've watched it happen in every hurricane season since, where shelves in the path of a storm are stripped before the first band of rain arrives. The pattern never changes. People wait, and then people panic, and the panic buys the same short list of things. So we're going to walk through 15 completely normal items that deserve a permanent place in your supplies. Not because anything is ending, but because disruptions happen on an ordinary schedule now, and the gap between comfortable and miserable is frequently a $2 purchase you didn't make. Every one of these is available at a normal grocery store, a dollar store, or a big box retailer. Same trip, same aisles, no specialty shops, nothing tactical. And here's the test I want you to apply as we go, because it's different from the one most lists use. I call it the replacement test. Don't ask what an item does. Ask what it replaces when the thing you'd normally reach for is gone. That's the question. Anything that only does its own job is a product. Anything that can stand in for 3 things you no longer have access to is a prep. Once you start looking at your house through the replacement test, the whole place changes character. One more thing before we start. One of these 15 items didn't begin life as a household product at all. It was invented as a battlefield bandage in the First World War, and it only became the thing on your grocery shelf afterwards, by accident, because army nurses figured out a second use for it. Most people have never heard that story, and it's the reason that item belongs in your supplies whether or not you think it applies to you. I'll get to it. Stay with me. Let's get into it. Number 1. A manual can opener, and I'm putting it first deliberately, because it is the single funniest gap in most people's supplies, and it isn't funny at all when it happens. Here's the situation. Somebody has done the responsible thing and built up a real supply of canned food. Beans, soup, tuna, vegetables, months of it. Then the power goes out, or they evacuate to a relative's house, or the one opener in the kitchen drawer breaks, and they are standing in front of 200 sealed steel containers with no reliable way into any of them. I've asked people in person how they'd open a can without an opener, and the confident answers are almost always the ones that end with somebody bleeding. A decent manual opener costs $3 or $4. Buy 3. One in the kitchen, one with your stored food, one in whatever bag would leave the house with you. Then add a couple of the little military-style folding openers, the P38 type, which cost about $1 for a handful, weigh nothing, and live permanently on a keyring or in a wallet. That's under $15 total to guarantee access to every calorie you've stored. There is no better ratio on this entire list. Number 2 is the least impressive object in your entire kitchen, and it's the step almost everybody skips when they try to make water safe. Paper coffee filters, $2 or $3 for 100. Here's the specific job. If you need to disinfect questionable water, cloudy water is a problem, because chemical disinfection works poorly when there's sediment and organic material in the way. Both the EPA and the CDC say the same thing. Let the water settle, then filter it through a clean cloth, a paper towel, or a coffee filter before you treat it. That's the step people skip. A coffee filter isn't purifying anything, it's removing the material that would otherwise protect the things you're trying to kill. Beyond that, they strain grit out of anything, shape into a funnel in about 4 seconds, serve as a disposable bowl or plate for dry food, blot grease, Keep dust off things in storage. Clean glass without leaving lint and light instantly as tinder. 100 of them weigh nothing and take up the space of a paperback. Number 3 is $1 a box, and it solves the problem that quietly takes people off their feet in week 1. Cornstarch. The obvious use is thickening, and that genuinely matters when you're turning thin stored ingredients into something that eats like a meal. But the reason it's on this list is skin. When people are on their feet more than usual, in damp clothes, without regular washing, chafing and heat rash show up fast, and they are miserable and genuinely disabling. Cornstarch, dusted into the friction points, is the cheapest fix there is, and it's what talcum powder was doing all along. It also works as a dry shampoo, absorbing oil from hair and scalp without a drop of water. It lifts grease out of fabric if you dust it on and brush it off an hour later. Made into a thin paste with cool water, it soothes sunburn and insect bites, and it polishes glass and metal without scratching. 1 box, $1, in a sealed bag so it stays dry. Number 4 gets confused with an item that does none of the same jobs, and that confusion is why most people don't have it. Epsom salt. A few dollars for a large bag? This isn't table salt, and it doesn't behave anything like it. Magnesium sulfate has a specific and slightly surprising medical pedigree. In British pharmacies, you can buy magnesium sulfate paste over the counter, a preparation of dried magnesium sulfate in glycerol used to draw out splinters and bring boils and abscesses to a head. The mechanism is osmosis. It pulls moisture, and with it, whatever's sitting under the skin. The everyday version of that is a soak. When people are walking further than usual, carrying more than usual, and sleeping badly, feet and joints take a beating, and a warm soak with a couple of handfuls of Epsom salt is the difference between someone who can work tomorrow and someone who can't. It's also a garden amendment for magnesium-hungry plants, and it has a documented use as a laxative, though that's one to follow the package directions on, rather than improvise with. Cheap, stores forever if it's dry, and genuinely helps with the kind of small physical problems that pile up in week 2. Number 5 will start a fire using a battery that's too dead to run a smoke detector. Steel wool. Specifically the very fine grade, the 0000, plus a few ordinary scouring pads. This is the one with the trick, and unlike most tricks in this genre, it actually works. Touch both terminals of a 9-volt battery to a piece of fine steel wool and it lights, not sparks. It glows red and spreads, giving you 30 to 60 seconds of ember to get tinder going. It works when your hands are cold and clumsy. It works when a match wouldn't, and it works with a 9-volt, that's Orano, that's already too weak to run a smoke detector, which means the dead battery in your junk drawer is a fire. That leads directly to the safety note, and it's a real one. Steel wool stored in contact with a 9-volt battery will do exactly the same thing inside a bag. Tape the terminals or keep them in separate containers. People have burned their own kits down learning this. Past fire. Steel wool scours cookware without soap, polishes rust-off tools, smooths a rough edge, and stuffed into gaps around pipes, it keeps rodents out, which becomes a much bigger deal when your food is stored somewhere unusual. Before we keep going, I put together a free guide a while back called the $50 Food Plan. It's the exact shopping list and storage plan for building a 90-day food supply on a real budget, and it covers a lot of these support items too, the small cheap things that make the actual food usable. Links in the description if you want it. The next 4 items are the medical block, and I'd argue they're the 4 highest value purchases in this entire video. They come to about $15 together. Number 6. Antihistamine tablets. Diphenhydramine, the pink ones, $4 for 100. Allergic reactions do not care that the roads are closed. Somebody gets stung, eats something they shouldn't have, or reacts to a medication, and the ambulance that would normally be 12 minutes away is now unavailable or 3 hours out. Having a proven antihistamine on hand, in quantity, is one of the highest value $4 decisions in your entire kit. I need to be precise about one thing though, because getting this wrong is dangerous. Antihistamines are for ordinary allergic reactions, hives, itching, rashes, seasonal misery, reactions to insect bites. They are not a treatment for anaphylaxis. If someone's airway is closing, they need epinephrine and emergency care, and no amount of pink tablet substitutes for that. If anyone in your household has a known severe allergy, the prescription is the plan, and this is the backup. For everything short of that, it's also a functional sleep aid, which is worth more than people expect when a household is stressed and sleeping badly on floors, and it helps with motion sickness during a long, unfamiliar drive. Number 7. Anti-diarrheal medication and rehydration salts, together because they solve the same problem. Here's a fact that reorders most people's priorities. Historically, in disasters and displacement, the thing that kills is very rarely the disaster. It's dehydration driven by gastrointestinal illness in an environment where sanitation has broken down. That's the pattern worldwide for as long as anyone has kept records. And the fix is embarrassingly cheap. And before I give you the recipe, let me correct the thing almost everybody gets wrong here, because I've heard it repeated on channels that should know better. A sports drink is not a rehydration solution. It's built for an athlete sweating out fluid, so it's loaded with sugar and comparatively light on sodium. And in a real gastrointestinal illness, the sugar load can make the problem worse rather than better. It is better than nothing. It is not the thing. This is the thing. Rehydration salt packets cost a few dollars a box and dissolve in clean water. But you can also make it, and this is the part to screenshot right now, and tape inside a cupboard door, because you will not remember it under stress. The World Health Organization's home recipe is 6 level teaspoons of sugar and half a level teaspoon of salt in 1 liter of clean water, stirred until it's fully dissolved. It should taste slightly sweet and slightly salty, and no more than that. The measurements are not a suggestion, because too much salt is genuinely dangerous, especially for a child. Mixed solution keeps about a day at room temperature. The reason it works is elegant. Sodium alone doesn't get absorbed well, but when sugar is present, the intestine takes up the sodium and pulls water along with it. That's it. That's the whole mechanism that has saved more lives than most modern medicine. Number 8. Plain uncoated aspirin, $2. Not the low-dose kind, and specifically not the enteric-coated kind. Regular adult aspirin, 325 milligrams. If someone is having a heart attack and isn't allergic, the American Heart Association's guidance is to chew 1 adult aspirin. Chew it, don't swallow it whole. Chewing produces measurable anti-clotting effect in about 5 minutes, compared to roughly 12 for a swallowed tablet, and the coating on enteric aspirin is designed to delay absorption, which is exactly what you don't want. In an ordinary week, that's a 7-minute difference and doesn't matter much. On a day when the ambulance is delayed because half the county's roads are underwater, 7 minutes of heart muscle is a lot of heart muscle. Call for help first, always. But keep uncoated aspirin in the house, in the car, and in your bag, and make sure the other adults in your home know it's there and know that it gets chewed. Number 9. Toothbrushes and toothpaste. Multipacks, a few dollars. This is the item people find boring right up until the moment it becomes the only thing they can think about. A dental abscess is an extraordinary kind of pain. It makes eating impossible, it can spread, and in a disruption, there is no dentist, no antibiotic prescription, and no procedure available at any price. A tooth going bad is one of the few small-scale problems that can genuinely take a healthy adult out of commission. I know somebody this happened to on a week-long trip, 4 days from anything, and by day 2 he was useless to everybody around him, and by day 3 he was talking seriously about pliers. Nothing about that improves in a wider emergency. Multi-packs of brushes cost almost nothing. Buy a bag of them and a stack of toothpaste, put some in every kit, and treat oral hygiene during a disruption as a non-negotiable daily task rather than a comfort you skip when you're tired. It's preventative medicine at about 8 cents a day. While we're at the halfway point, do me a favor. Tell me in the comments the one cheap household item you keep that you would never see on a list like this one. Not the obvious ones. Everybody says the obvious ones. The odd one. The one that would make somebody go, huh. I've added items to my own supplies from these comment sections more than once, including one I flat out disagreed with before I went and bought it. So tell me what I've missed, and tell me if you think I've got something on this list wrong. Number 10 is the one I promised you at the start. The item that was a battlefield bandage before it was a household product. Feminine hygiene pads. During the First World War, Kimberly-Clark manufactured surgical dressings out of a wood pulp material called cellucotton, which was about 5 times more absorbent than cotton and considerably cheaper. Army nurses started using the surgical dressings as sanitary napkins. After the war, the company was looking for a peacetime use for the material, and in 1920, that became Kotex. So the product on the shelf in that aisle didn't get adapted into a bandage. It started as one, which is exactly why it belongs in your supplies regardless of who lives in your house. Individually wrapped, clean, extremely absorbent, and cheap, they are a very good improvised dressing for a bleeding wound, and they're already sized and shaped for it. They also make a decent insole, an absorbent pad under a leaking anything, and a filter medium in a pinch. And then there's the obvious reason, which too many lists tiptoe around. If there are women in your household, this is a monthly requirement that does not pause for a power outage, a supply chain problem, or an evacuation. 3 months' worth costs about $15. By the way, that free guide I mentioned, the $50 food plan, has a whole section on the secondary supplies like this one, the things nobody thinks to stock alongside the food, but that make an enormous difference in a real situation. Links below if you haven't grabbed it yet. Number 11 costs $1 and makes every gallon of water you own do roughly 10 times the work. A plain plastic spray bottle. Think of it as a water multiplier rather than a container, because that's exactly what it is. A gallon of water poured from a jug does maybe one job. That same gallon in a spray bottle does 10. Washing hands properly with a few ounces instead of a running tap, rinsing a plate, wiping down a surface, damping a cloth for a sponge bath, cooling somebody down in heat, watering seedlings without drowning them, rinsing soap out of hand-washed clothes. When water is the constraint, and in most extended disruptions it eventually is, the tool that stretches it is worth more than more of it. Buy 2 or 3. Keep one empty and labeled for clean water only, and keep another for a diluted cleaning solution. Number 12 costs $2, and it exists because of one mindset shift that most people haven't made yet. A basic sewing kit. Needles, thread, a few buttons. Here's the shift. In normal life, when something tears, you replace it. In a disruption, when something tears, that's it. That's the state it's in from now on, unless you can fix it. A torn coat in cold weather isn't an inconvenience, it's a heat leak. A failed seam on a pack means you're carrying things in your arms. A cheap kit repairs clothing, packs, tarps, and gear, and a sturdy needle and strong thread will handle upholstery, canvas, and webbing. Needles also pull splinters better than most improvised tools, provided you sterilize them properly. My grandmother's was an old tin that lived in the same drawer for 40 years and got used constantly. Mine is a $2 plastic thing from a dollar store, and functionally it's the same object. Buy 2 and add a spool of heavier thread and a couple of large needles, because the ones that come in these kits are sized for shirt buttons, not for gear. Number 13 is the one that will get you out when the app is sending everybody else into the same traffic jam. Paper maps. A road atlas and a local county map, $5 to $15. Everybody in your household navigates by a device that requires a charged battery, and for the useful parts, a working data connection. Neither of those is guaranteed. And even when the satellites are fine, the routing is not. Because the app is going to send you and 40,000 other people down the same 3 highways. A paper atlas doesn't need anything. It shows secondary roads. It shows the whole region at once instead of a moving rectangle. And you can spread it on a table and let 4 people look at it together and agree on something, which no phone has ever made easy. You can mark it up, write on it in pen, circle a meeting point, and hand it to somebody who's leaving separately. Keep one in each vehicle and one in the house. And here's the part that costs nothing. Actually look at it once, this month, while everything is calm. Find 3 ways out of your area that aren't the interstate. That's a 20-minute exercise that will outperform most of the gear people buy. Number 14 fixes a problem that doesn't show up until week 3, by which point it's already happening to you. Multivitamins. A large bottle, $10. Here's the quiet problem with stored food. It's built around calories, shelf life, and cost, which means it's mostly grain, starch, sugar, and fat, and it's very thin on the things fresh produce provides. That's fine for a week. Over a month or 2, in a household under stress, deficiencies show up as poor healing, low energy, mouth and gum problems, and a general fragility that people mistake for exhaustion. Historically, this is the thing that quietly took apart armies and ships' crews long before any enemy did. A daily multivitamin closes most of that gap for about 3 cents a day. Buy the big bottle, check the date, and do rotate them, because unlike salt or sugar, they genuinely lose potency over a few years. Add a bottle for kids if you have them, and don't overthink the brand. Number 15 is under $5 for all of it, and it's the one I'd fight hardest to keep on this list. A deck of cards, a notebook, and a couple of pencils. Because extended disruptions are almost never what people picture. Extended disruptions are mostly not dramatic. They're long, dark, cold, boring stretches where there's nothing to do and nothing to look at, and people are frightened and stuck in a room together. Boredom in that setting isn't trivial. It turns into irritability, then into arguments, then into people making bad decisions just to feel like they're doing something. A deck of cards absorbs hours, and it works by candlelight, on a floor, with any number of people at any age. The notebook is the other half. Write down what you used and when, what you're low on, what worked, phone numbers you'd normally never need to remember, and what happened each day. Memory gets unreliable under stress, and a written log turns chaos into something you can manage. Afterwards, it becomes the most valuable preparedness document you own because it's the only one written about your actual household. And a pencil works when it's cold, damp, and freezing, which is more than a pen will do. So those are 15. And I want to step back and point at what connects them, because it isn't price, though nothing there cost more than about $15. It's the replacement test, and every single one of them passes it. Everyone is a substitute. Not a gadget with one job, but a thing that steps in when the normal answer isn't available. The coffee filter stands in for the municipal treatment plant. The spray bottle stands in for the tap. The atlas stands in for the satellite. The cards stand in for every screen in the house. That's why the list works, and it's why a shelf of these outperforms an expensive item that only does the thing it was sold to do. The whole list fits on one shelf in a hall closet. There's no bunker, no basement, no dedicated room, and if a stranger opened that closet, they'd see a closet. I think that's the part that stops people. They see photographs online of rooms lined with buckets and shelving, and they think, well, I can't do that, so why start? But that's the wrong comparison entirely. You don't need a room. You need a shelf and about $40, spread over a few normal shopping trips. That is genuinely the whole distance between scrambling and being steady, and most of you already own one of half the things on this list. The only difference between having one and being prepared is having 3. Preparedness isn't about fear. It's about the quiet that comes from knowing the basics are handled. If you're ready to take it further and build a real 90-day food supply without spending a fortune, the free $50 food plan guide lays it out step by step. Exact shopping list, storage strategies that work in small apartments, and meal plans that don't need cooking fuel or electricity. Thousands of people have downloaded it, and it's completely free. Links in the description and the pinned comment. If this was useful, consider joining the channel as a member with the join button next to subscribe. It supports the channel directly and keeps this kind of thing coming. Either way, drop a comment and tell me which of the 15 you're picking up first. Or, better, tell me what I left out. Because there's always something, and the comment section on these videos is consistently smarter than I am. You don't have to do all of it. You just have to start. And you've already started, because now you know what you're looking for the next time you're in the store anyway. And if you want to keep going, there's a video on screen right now on the 11 dirt cheap items I quietly keep on hand that almost never show up on lists like this one. Zero overlap with these 15. It's the natural next shelf. Watch that one next. Stay steady. Stay ready.